Hi, this is Ian Fox, author of Small Wants, Little Needs, the Spiritual and Practical Solution to Financial Freedom. I'm here today to take you through the 5 steps to inner peace. Now the question you may ask yourself is, why do I need inner peace? Well, let's think about it. You know, people have more stress in their lives than at any other time in history. With all the pressures, all the challenges, all the situations, all the circumstances, people have a ton of things to deal with, and that's why I believe you need the 5 steps to inner peace. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you through the 5 steps that are going to help you personally, professionally and spiritually. So let's get started. The first step on the 5 steps to inner peace is to control your stress. Now we all experience stress. There's all sorts of situations and circumstances that stress us out in life, and you probably have people who stress you out as well. One of the most powerful things that I've learned in my experience to control stress is what I call DNR, which simply stands for do not react. Now, I know it's easier said than done. I know there's things, situations happening to you and people getting in your face and all kinds of things, all kinds of situations where you're tested. But if you can remain present and in that position of not reacting, then you'll have a power about you which few people possess, and that will really help you control your stress. So do not react. And it's easy when things are going great. The time to practice do not react is when you are being challenged, when you're being sent that message from somebody, when you're being given that experience that helps test your resolve and your commitment and your emotions. So think about a situation that you could be in. You know, think about somebody getting on your nerves, or a situation at work or at home or in your family or with your kids, and how before you've reacted, you've blown up, you've exploded, you've gone off the handle, you've done something else. This time though, think about standing back, taking your time and choosing how you respond. So rather than things controlling you, you control things by making a decision on how you're going to respond to them. That is the power of non-reaction, or in this case, do not react. Point 2 on the 5 steps to inner peace is forgiveness. One of the most powerful things that you can experience in your life is forgiveness and forgiving. It's, you know, I know what it's like. You get caught up in things, and people can get on your nerves, and situations can stress you out, and different things like this. But the most important thing for you to practice is forgiveness. So you let things go, you don't ingest things, and you have to think about the actual consequences of non-forgiveness. And non-forgiveness means that you're taking that energy and you're ingesting it inside your system, inside your energy, and then perhaps you're going to potentially pay it forward. And we've all seen this, you know, when somebody carves you up in the car, or somebody bumps into you in the street, or they give you a hard time for some reason, wherever that might be, chances are they're in a state. And they're in that state because somebody or a situation has stressed them out. They've internalized that. It's put them in a certain behavior, and then they've paid that behavior forward. We see this all the time. So one of the most powerful things you can practice is when somebody's in your face, a situation is getting on your nerves, or something has happened, then do your best to forgive. You know, it raises your energy and it raises your consciousness when you learn to forgive. It gives you a power which few people ever experience, and that is the power of forgiveness. And like the last step I covered, the best time to practice it is right in the middle of a situation where you feel like you want to kill someone or something. That's the best time to practice the power of forgiving. Step 3 on the 5 steps to inner peace is controlling your ego. Wow. You know, when we talk about the ego, we're talking about taking control over one of the most dominating forces in most people's lives. Now, the ego comes in all different shapes and forms, and when I talk about ego, I'm talking about the unconsciousness side of things, where you're pulled along by the ego, trying to achieve things, trying to get things, trying to do things, and it completely takes over your life. And I've seen this so many times. In fact, it happened to me, where I would buy objects and buy things and have to prove myself and look for acceptance and look for trying to increase my status and things like this, until one day I realised that I was completely under the control of my ego. Now, ways that you can control your ego is, first of all, be very, very aware of it. Now, the ego hates awareness. So the second you become aware of what you're thinking and what you're feeling, the ego becomes very shaky and very uncomfortable, because you start to question its determination to have you do things unconsciously. So become aware of it, number one, and then try to identify what you're feeling and what you're doing. In other words, if you're going to buy something, ask yourself the real question of why you're going to buy it. Is it to feed your ego? Is it to try to prove yourself to someone? Are you looking for acceptance? These are the questions that you need to ask yourself when you are making decisions to do anything virtually. To me, controlling the ego is about being present. It's about being aware. It's almost like becoming the witness of your thoughts before you have them. Almost like the background awareness of your thoughts before you perceive them and before you have them. That's taking control over your ego and living a much simpler way of life. In other words, you're not pulled along on a never-ending quest to get things, achieve things, consume things. You're taking charge over your life by taking control over your ego. If you do this, you'll experience more inner peace. Step 4 on the 5 steps to inner peace is controlling your fears. Now, fears are one of the biggest traps in your life and in humanity. It's our fears that keep us from achieving things, from doing things, from moving forward, from getting over things. Fear is a killer. It really, really is. Fear is one of the biggest killers. I want you to fold your arms for a second. Okay, then fold them the other way. Okay, it feels uncomfortable, doesn't it? Why? Because we don't often fold our arms in that way. And the point I'm making is that, your fear is a conditioner. Most of our fears are conditioned. They're patterns of behaviour which have been reinforced over time with experience, with association, with attachment, with emotion. And we've kind of developed a habit. Well, the only way that we're going to break that habit is by doing things a different way, by changing our perception of things, by trying new things, and perhaps even facing and moving towards our fears, for instance, because they will hold us back. If we let them, they will hold us back. I once heard the analogy of fear, or acronym for fear I should say, is false evidence appearing real, or false expectation appearing real, which means what you are afraid of, or what you think that you're afraid of, is not actually real. It's like a person who says that they're afraid of heights. Well, it's not really the heights that they're afraid of, it's actually falling to their death that scares them the most. But I'm not just talking about those kind of fears. I'm talking about the fears that hold us back. The small fears that keep us down, that prevent us from evolving and from raising our consciousness. Those are the kind of fears that I'm talking about here. The fear to take action, the fear to face things, the fear to let go, the fear to tell somebody that you love them or that you forgive them, as I mentioned in the previous step. Those are the kind of things that I'm talking about here. And we have to make a concerted decision that we're going to move forward despite our fears, despite what we perceive to be real. Now, and we do that with number 1, action, and number 2, repetition. So I know what it's like. You have fears, and because you reinforce them over years and years, they can be quite difficult to let go of. But we do that through experience. So just do this little exercise with me right now. Just take your hands, place them together, and place your thumb one on top of the other. Okay? And once you've done that, change your thumbs over the opposite way. It feels uncomfortable, doesn't it? A bit like the arms folded. Why? Again, because we're not used to folding our thumbs over in that way. But now go back to the first way again. And then I want you to change your thumbs over about 21 times. So it's back and forth 21 times. Do it with me now. Back and forth 21 times. 21 times. And when you reach the 21st repetition, go back to the first way again, go to the second way, and then how does it feel? More comfortable, right? Why? Because repetition is power. The more you do something, the more you reinforce it, the better you get at it. And that includes overcoming and eliminating your fears. Because your fears, by the way, are the design of your repetition. You know, you've thought about them, you've practiced them, you've reinforced them again and again and again and again with repetition. Well, that's the way to get out of them. Practice what you fear the most. Go towards it, if it's safe to do so. Go towards it and then repetitionize your way out of your fear, because that's what got you into it in the first place. So use the power of repetition and action to eliminate your fears. That is going to take you closer towards finding inner peace in your life. So that brings us to step number 5 of the 5 steps to inner peace. This is about raising your consciousness. Now, when we talk about consciousness, and I've touched on it a few times during the course of these 5 tips, or these 5 steps, when we talk about raising our consciousness, we're talking about becoming more aware, we're talking about becoming more spiritual, we're talking about you evolving as a human being. Now, I believe, and I always have believed, and this is part and parcel of what I teach, is that you cannot be successful in life, and I don't mean in terms of materialistic success. I mean in terms of feeling like a whole human being, somebody who has purpose, somebody whose life has meaning beyond just paying bills or paying debts or collecting things. I mean somebody who has real purpose, somebody who feels as though their life has made a difference, and that can only happen, and you can only be truly happy and truly free when you learn to raise your consciousness. No amount of money in the bank is going to help you find freedom. That will present a whole new level of problems for you. You can only be free when you raise your consciousness. And to me that's what it's all about. And you hear of these people who, they have all this money, they have all this success, they have all these millions, these big houses, these mansions, etc. And then all of a sudden they come to a conclusion or a realization that their life is empty and there's nothing else. It's like these superstars who turn to drugs and drink and different things like this. It's because beyond their ambition to achieve things and beyond their ambition to create an identity for themselves and be somebody, they realize at the end of all that, unless they've worked on themselves spiritually, then there's a void. Everything else is just empty. And that's why raising your consciousness is the most powerful thing that you can ever do, and it's a constant and never-ending journey. It's something that you don't just take up once and then that's it, I am now conscious. It's something that is ongoing, it's evolving, it's progressive. And that's the beauty of being alive, in my opinion, is that you're learning how to become a more conscious and realised human being. Because that's where the answer truly lies, beyond materiality, beyond anything in terms of form or thought form or obsessions or anything like that. You can only be truly free when you raise your consciousness. And also, of course, unless you raise your consciousness, you're going to end up suffering at some level. All things that you experience eventually at some point lead to suffering. And I don't mean suffering necessarily physically, as in pain. I mean emotional pain. I mean the things like feeling loss or fear of loss, or the pain of dissatisfaction or not having your expectations met and things like this. There's all different levels of suffering. But when you're conscious, you don't suffer. You become free. You know, you may feel pain, and just because you're conscious doesn't mean that you never feel pain. It just means that your evaluation of that pain or your interpretation and perception of that pain is completely different. It does mean, though, is that you don't suffer. You choose not to suffer. And there's a difference. You know, you can be feeling pain, you know, maybe the pain is unavoidable, but the suffering is generally always optional. Now I want to finish these 5 steps by taking you through a powerful story about a Zen monk who was walking in the field one day when he was being chased by a tiger. So he ran along the field as fast as his monk legs would carry him towards the edge of a cliff. He got to the edge of the cliff and thought, oh, what am I going to do now? I'm going to be eaten by the tiger. He then manages to see a vine and grabs hold of the vine and lowers himself down to where the tiger couldn't reach him and eat him. While swinging on the vine, he looks down and sees that another tiger is waiting for him at the bottom. So he's stuck between the tiger at the top and then the tiger at the bottom. So he's contemplating his situation, and then notices 2 mice start nibbling at the vine just above him, and the vine's getting thinner and thinner. And while this is all going on, and while he's contemplating the inevitable, he notices just over to his right a strawberry plant with a beautiful succulent strawberry hanging from the leaf. And the vine is swinging and getting thinner and thinner. You can see the tiger at the top and the tiger at the bottom. He looks over again at the strawberry, the succulent, beautiful red strawberry. Whilst holding on with one hand, he reaches over and grabs the strawberry and pops it in his mouth. At that point, the vine snaps and he falls to his death. The power of this story is that although the monk did fall to his death, he chose not to suffer. Instead, he chose to completely enjoy the succulent taste and the vibrancy of the strawberry. Now my point to you is, you're going to have tigers in your life, and you've probably got lots of them now, at the top and at the bottom, and perhaps even at the sides. And you're going to have these mice that start nibbling away at your vine, or whatever that might be. But always look for the succulent strawberry to keep you present and to keep you focused, to keep you conscious and to keep you away from suffering. I hope you found value in those 5 steps to inner peace. I'm Ian Fox. Be conscious, get fearless, and live free.